also. Yeah. Okay, I'll go back to sharing my screen now. Okay, inviting BPM whenever you're ready. Here you.
Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, 5 minutes of opposition speech, and I still don't know what is the actor analysis that they are providing, right? They say that, oh, there are other things that the skilled labor should probably think about without even telling what are those other things in the first place, right? We don't think like they can just simply get away by like quote unquote calling them other things and without like actually analyzing it. And I think the second speaker is too late in this debate, right? But secondly, they go ahead and like tell you that, look, the kind of like focus that you're going to have in a particular job is probably going to reduce. Look at the argument that I give you, right? Because they don't even like provide you analysis to why like the focus is essentially going to remove, right? Because I give you the analysis of like the psychology of individuals. When you are given variety of work, you're much more likely to do that well, as opposed to being able to do a single work which is extremely like monotonous and you're doing it for like 10 hours straight. And therefore it's probably better for you to do that like variety of work in the first place, right? But secondly, they also go ahead and like tell you that, look, they're not going to be able to do their job well and stuff like that, and they're not going to be able to improve. The reason why like they would be able to improve is like, lies in the same analysis of opposition, right? Because opposition tells you that, look, different companies have different aims. That's exactly why these people are going to be able to like improve, right? Because these people are going to be given different problems and they are supposed to find out different solutions to that particular problem, which means that your problem solving mechanism increases much more in my side of the house as opposed to their side of the house, where they're given like monotonous problems to solve every single day, right? Understand, if you are a particular, let's say if you are like a CS student, like computer science student, and you want to like code different, like code every single day, you essentially want to code different things and are going to be able like and to be able to like do better in terms of different kinds of like coding mechanism, as opposed to just being given one kind of like problem to solve that and being able to code that essentially. And therefore we think that in myself they are going to be better off, right? But lastly, I think they also go ahead and like tell you that, look, like poly work essentially is going to like burden these workers. Let me tell you what poly work is actually going to look like, right? I don't understand why people would have the incentive to overwork or overburden themselves, essentially because like individuals also, or like norms of like taking care of your family and being able to feed and like have a like healthy environment with the family still going to exist in my side of the house. But the second thing is that like the way how polywork is essentially going to work is essentially like the moment is probably going to be like the division of the time that you're going to spend in one company, right? If you're spending like 9 to 5 hours, like 9 to 5 in one particular company, that probably is going to be like split down, and then you're going to like work the exact same amount of hours. Because like I don't think like suddenly these kinds of like working hours are going to be removed in my side of the house either, right? I still think that like all of these kind of like working laws are still going to be applicable, and therefore I don't think they're going to be overburdening themselves in my side of the house either, right? But let's go to the like why these people are going to be better off in my side of the house again, right? Secondly, we believe that it's going to like create better like and secure future for these individuals, right? When you're at a young like age, you essentially have more ability and more energy to do like more than one work, and being able to do more than what you would be able to do in the later point of like your age, right? Which means that you are going to be able to like work more, but which be that also channelizes to being able to like earn more from different places and stuff like that, right? Which means that you are going to be able to like save that amount of extra money in order to do well in like the later point of your time, when it's probably like the rainy day and late rainy time of your life. And therefore we think that like saving and having a better or secured future essentially happens in my safety house, right? But thirdly, I also proved to you as to like why these people are going to have better like skill in my safety house, simply because they are going to be able to explore different places and being able to do different kinds of work, and therefore like their productivity is going to be increasing. But lastly, you essentially are going to be better off in my safety house simply because these are the mainstream jobs, right? Which means that like you was essentially being pushed into these kinds of jobs for some amount of people, right? Which means that if that is the case for you, these people can probably become like, let's say if I'm a person and I'm like working in a company, but I essentially wanted to be a singer, I can probably go like in the night shift and like be an opera singer or something like that, right? But second, you can also be like a dancing coach in the evening, which means that like you are going to be able to like juggle between those two jobs, right? Which means at the end of the day, when you are being able to like explore not just like the skilled side of your profession, but also being able to like do what you essentially like as a talent and a hobby, you can essentially see whether or not you like it better or not, right? Which means that in my side of the house, you are probably going to be able to not just like see whether your skill is getting better, but also be able to explore your hobby. If in case that hobby pays you better, I think this person can now go ahead and like prioritize that hobby over the skill and therefore do whatever they actually want, right? I've proved to you as to why these skilled laborers are going to be better off in my side of the house, for like a couple of reasons. Firstly, you're going to be able to realize your full potential. Secondly, you're going to be having a better and secure future. Thirdly, you're going to be able to like have better skills. And lastly, you're going to be able to like understand your true talents and being able to like come out of the structure of like mainstream jobs in my side of the house. Very proud to do this.
All right, thanking DP. I'm inviting DLO whenever they're ready.
All right, I'll start in three. Yeah, just 3, 2, 1. Yeah. A very good evening to the House at large. This House, as skilled workers, prefers a world where polywork is the norm, is the motion for debate. And as the deputy leader of opposition, I firmly disagree with this nonsensical notion proposed by the government. As has been established by the leader of opposition, polywork, while an appealing prospect to the untrained eye, withholds a multitude of disastrous consequences, which are oftentimes not entirely visible at first sight. Polyworking in the manner proposed by the government risks complacency and a loss of focus across the wider population. An individual's full potential is best realized when they pursue something with thorough dedication, as opposed to offering bits and pieces of effort as per their whims and fancies. The government fails to consider the impact on the national level. When workers can practically always choose their jobs, what they want to do, jobs which are not as popular or maybe more inconvenient would have an astounding lack of individuals completing them. Nobody wants to be a sewage worker or a cleaner, but such jobs are vital in the modern world for the functioning of society. Not only does polyworking lead to the application of extreme pressure upon the poly worker, risking stress and anxiety-related disorders, but it simultaneously leads to a rapid decrease in the efficiency behind the completion of tasks, owing to more distractions and less time to dedicate to a singular objective. Additionally, polyworking makes employees a great deal less reliable to fulfill deadlines, and this too risks upsetting the balance and timelines within which an employer works. Just considering a shift to polyworking is absurd, let alone trying to bring it to life in the modern world. Employers will have a crisis where not enough skilled individuals are dedicating enough time to the jobs they need to. Polyworking made a degree of sense in the pandemic, where economic consequences and work from home made it difficult to sustain a life based off a singular paycheck for a great deal of the middle and lower class. But now we are returning to normalcy. Polyworking only risks the complete and utter devastation of the economy. The government brought up burnout. And yes, burnout is a valid problem in the modern world, but polyworking does not solve it. Instead, it exacerbates it, owing to the increased pressure put on employees, something the government entirely failed to consider. They also mentioned that supplies of mainstream jobs are already in diminishing supplies. But do they really believe that disrupting the focus of workers through polyworking is the solution? Both sides of this house want the lives of poly workers to become better, or workers to become better, but polyworking is not the solution. Polyworking fails to make any improvements to a worker's life, only applying burden on them that they did not have before. The proposition makes it seem as though workers are given no chance to influence the path they take in life. Well, I hate to inform them. 18 years, I repeat, 18 years are given to an individual before they are expected to contribute to society in an effective and relevant manner. In these 18 years, they get to choose how they dedicate their planning in order to lead a happy and reliable life in the future without the necessity for polyworking disrupting the world we know and love today. The government said that, that workers must focus on other things. Skilled laborers must work on other things, which we did not reply to earlier. What must they work on? They must work on their dedication. They must work on their mental health. They must work on themselves as people, as opposed to pointlessly filling their time with jobs related to polyworking, which only risks distracting them. To make polyworking the norm would be a grave mistake on part of the government and would pose irrevocable financial challenges, in addition to those already present in the aftermath of the pandemic and the current global financial crisis. Polyworking risks upsetting the balance of life where an employer and an employee can rely on one another to live sustainable and effective lives. Once you put polyworking into place, no longer can an employer rely on their employee to turn in work on time, for the employee is burdened with a variety of jobs which they are unable to complete and fulfill in time. As previously mentioned, thorough effort is what is required to further this nation, not a variety of jobs and a lack of skilled laborers, leading to a skilled shortage. And on this note, I'd like to rest my case knowing full well that we have established why polyworking is not an effective solution in the future.
All right, thanking DLO for their speech. With this, we end the opening half of the debate, inviting member of government to open the case for CG.
Right. I'll just take 30 seconds, please.
Sure. Also, reminder for POIs, just try POIs. You'll understand them better if you do it in the box. You can lower your hand if it's not for a question.
Right. I'll be starting in 3, 2, and 1. Good evening, everyone. As member of government, I will first be offering some rebuttals to the opening opposition. Right. So the first speaker of opposition came here and talked about how multitasking will harm these skilled laborers because they won't be channeling their energy into only one aspect. But what we need to really look at here is the status quo, right? So in the status quo, there are many skilled workers that do not, first of all, like their job. Now, if they don't like their job, it's very hard for them to actually do it every single day methodically, and it's very hard for them to actually do it to the fullest of the potential. So if we really want them to reach the fullest of the potential, what do we give them? We give them this entire norm of polywork where they can experiment essentially between many jobs. Right. And then they went on to talk about how these workers will not have any time to be diligent and they won't have time to dedicate to these work or to this work. All right. First of all, I would like to clarify that these skilled laborers or these skilled workers, they will only obviously go for jobs that they like when polywork as a choice is given to them, right? And if they go for jobs that they like, I mean, we can't really say that they won't be diligent and they won't be dedicated, because if it's something that you like, you will do it. You will put in that time, you will put in that effort, as opposed to the status quo where they probably won't, when I will be taking that POI later, so as opposed to the status quo when at this point of time, they might not be putting as much hard work as they do in our side of the house, right? The leader of opposition also talked about people exploring their skills. Exactly, and that's what we're arguing for here as member of government, because what we essentially need to see is that a skilled laborer does not have only one set skill, right? There are different kinds of skills. A person might be an engineer, but might also want to become, I don't know, a part-time dancer or something, but might not want to make it their full-time career because, well, maybe the job opportunities are not that vast in that career field as of now, but they might want to really go for it as such, right? So there can be many combinations of careers that can be taken up by many skilled laborers, and for them to only think that they will look at only one job and do it for the rest of their lives when it's probably something they don't even want to do is something that's frankly not good for the actor, in this case, the skilled worker. They went on to say how that it'll be a devastation to the economy, but it won't. simply because when we talk about human resources, we talk about them again doing if they're doing jobs that they actually like, doing jobs that they actually want to do, then their output will automatically increase, right? Moving on to my first argument. Right. So if we look at, especially after the pandemic, which is a situation that was also mentioned in the last speaker's speech, we see that there has been an economic recession. What that really means is that, for example, if we take Twitter, half of the employees were just fired, right? In this case, these employees might not have the kind of job security that they want, especially because the employment opportunities at this point of time after the pandemic are not as much, right, as they were before the pandemic. So if they have a lot of jobs, then they have a lot of sources of income. What that really means is that even if they do get fired from one job, maybe during an economic crisis, they at least will have some amount of alternate source of income. Whereas on their side of the house, on opposition side of the house, what essentially we'll be looking at is they'll be doing one job, and they might that this Twitter employee might be doing one job only investing their time in Twitter, and then they might just get fired, not get a job anywhere else. What do we see here? There is a sufficient growth in the unemployed skilled labor, which is a waste of human resources for any country and the world at large, right? Now, another argument that I would essentially like to make, it is my protected time, and so sorry, I can't take any POIs. Right, essentially another argument I would like to make is that if more people are employed in multiple jobs, right, and let's say worker X is being employed in some amount of job, in some job, and that job does not offer him or her the amount of amenities and the amount of services that maybe the worker requires, right, like maternity leave or terms and conditions, etc., etc. But what we essentially need to see here is that in this case, the worker will have a choice to make. They can either quit the job because now they have alternate sources of income and they don't need to actually bother about where their next meal is going to come from, and they can actually go on to doing jobs that they like, first of all. Secondly, the quality of employment will increase. With that, I'd like to rest my case.
All right, thanking member of government for their speech, inviting member of opposition. Here.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Panel, this house is debating on whether skilled workers prefer a world where polywork is the norm. Now, polyworking is an insidious method that burns out an individual mentally. We are living in a world where everyone tries to maintain a work-life balance, and jumping between jobs and environments can prove to be even more stressful and burdening. This could lead to several emotional distresses, like going into depression, anxiety, panic attacks, since one is not able to cope in their competitive environment and work productively. Polyworking simply means collaborating with new people from different backgrounds and environments, and adapting to these environments can be highly tasking mentally and physically. Studies also show that switching between environments can include a lack of concentration and attention span, which is going to make the work done much more inefficient. The timer isn't started.
Yeah, I figured. I'm sorry. I was taking notes. If you want to start again, I can.
Okay, I think I'll do that. I have it written down.
All right, sure.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Panel, this house is debating on whether skilled workers prefer a world where polywork is the norm. Now, polyworking is an insidious method that burns out an individual mentally. We are living in a world where everyone tries to maintain a work-life balance, and jumping between jobs and environments can prove to be even more stressful and burdening. This could lead to several emotional distresses, like going into depression, anxiety, panic attacks, since one is not able to cope in their competitive environment and work productively. Polywork simply means collaborating with new people from different backgrounds and environments, and adapting to these environments can be highly tasking mentally and physically. Studies also show that switching between environments can include a lack of concentration and attention span, which is going to make the work done much more inefficient. Working on this assumption, This will affect hiring companies detrimentally by having them to employ more people, increasing their expenditure. Even if we discard this assumption, they cannot be as efficient since they cannot work at their capacity and cannot complete as much work as they could if they weren't polyworking because of their other commitments. Furthermore, on the contrary to what the members of the opening government said, polyworking could hinder the position of the workers in the social ladder in a company because they are not working at their full potential and are too distracted by several other factors. Instead of taking up more jobs to further build on their prowess, skilled workers should rather focus on taking extracurriculars outside of their work as a hobby, which would prove to be an effective break from their already hectic life. This would prove to be much more productive and increase and promote a healthy lifestyle rather than putting them in a rat race. Lastly, several national companies like NASA and ISRO work on the key concept of building trust between confidants and bestowing people with confidential information. So polyworking can come in the way of building this trust and increase the amount of information that is leaked, threatening the national security of any nation. It can risk the balance of trust and time management, which are crucial in any working environment. Moreover, oligopolistic companies like Coca-Cola and Pepsi also work on keeping their accounts confidential. So polyworking can lead to an increase in collusion due to questionable integrity, eventually causing higher prices for consumers, causing market failure. Panel, the opening government also gave the example of coders who get to work on several problems rather than working on one monotonous problem. While the opposition recognizes this as an extremely valid point, it would like to point out that coders can often choose to work on several projects within a single company that tackle different problems rather than polywork. The member of the opposition would like to rest their case.
Um, is that it? I'm sorry. Is it for PY that you've stopped?
Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thanking member of opposition, inviting government whip to conclude the side case from side CG. Here.
Can we start in 3, 2, 1? So while we are talking about polywork in the form of norm, we need to consider that all proficiency also comes with the practice of variety. We cannot be proficient at our work without the variety we have. So just imagine you studying a subject or doing any job in general. You need to practice different types of problems. You need to go through different type of things to actually excel in that. We also need to understand, like, while the opposition said that, not all jobs can do it, and you need to, if you want to do the hobby, you can just pursue your hobby and not take another job. We need to understand that not all hobbies can sustain a lifestyle. You cannot, being a dancer is extremely difficult. You need to struggle a lot. You cannot sustain a lifestyle in this sort of economy, considering any economy as of now, because almost all economy in the world are going through an economic recession. And while we say that there is too much stress, or like if we are working on multiple jobs, that there is going to be a lot of stress, people are going to go through depression, can we also understand that people tend to be more stressed in the case where they don't have any jobs rather than when they have to work too much, because we also tend to work overtime in usual circumstances. And it is really impossible for us to work on just one thing without feeling monotonous. I do agree with the speech of the PM that the workers realize their full potential and they also break the monotonous behavior or the monotonous pattern of the job, which actually helps them improve. We cannot work on the same thing for the very long hours, because after we're done with one thing, it tends to exhaust us, and exhaustion is the biggest reason of burnout, because when you're doing something on a regular basis or very often, you tend to think about it too often. You don't have a change of environment, and we do need a change of environment to actually feel good about what we are doing. We also need better opportunities, because end of the day, the more skills we have, the better jobs we have. We cannot just rely on one source of income for the sake of saying that
maybe this source of income will help us grow in future, because there is no job protection in this world. We uh, like the member of the government said, that you cannot rely on one source of income, because we just took an example of Twitter, who laid off half of their people for the sake, even the highest post, even the most skilled people. And when we talk about doctors, teachers, these are the people who are helping developing the youth or saving lives. We have no right to ask them to work in one single job and say that you cannot help the other person. I think that's how I will rest my case.
Thanking government whip for their speech, inviting opposition whip to close this debate. Yo.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Um, so I'll be starting on a self count of 3, 2, 1. Okay. So this new concept may appeal to the new generation, but it is truly a concept that leads to many workplace nuisances. This concept only attracts the Gen Z or the modern generation because of one main reason, and that is greed for money. And as you all know, that greed leads to the failure and losses. In all the brouhaha, we forget to understand that this concept may lead to the breakdown of the business, the worker, and the people that are involved in the business, which will ultimately lead to the downfall of their employees. A company works on the basis of efficiency. Efficiency runs a business. If the person are not efficient, the business won't run. And efficiency can only be achieved through a focus on a particular job. And polywork divides this focus on multiple jobs. So let's say I'm a person who decides to polywork. I won't be able to give time to a particular job, and if that job needs me for a particular more time, I won't be able to give it. A company works on the basis of efficiency, which will only be achieved through a focus on a particular job. I may repeat, efficiency is a key to success for a company, but because of polyworking, efficiency gets distributed. This costs a company a great deal of time and work efficiency. Let's talk about exhaust. Rest is as important as work, but working non-stop just for a few extra bucks leads to many psychological problems. It depreciates a person of energy and attitude towards its work, and will definitely lead to a breakdown, which will ultimately lead to a person quitting the job. So this shows us a very funny cycle, that a person who is trying to polywork, who is trying to juggle 3 jobs or like more than one job, will ultimately lose the job that he'll be mainly targeting it. Okay, so what happens if the is someone okay, yes. So let's look into the eye of the law. And if the person who is polyworking decides to do something unfair, if a worker works for a company as well as its competitor, she may lead to the release of confidential information, which will also lead to a lawsuit against the worker. Okay, so I'll tell you guys about something that happened around 12 years ago. So a worker from Coca-Cola sold the secret to Pepsi, which ultimately lead to a lawsuit against the person, and the person had to pay around $20 million to the company and also lost his job. See, doing something like this will lead to a many difficult problem for the person. And if not, then a worker may polywork just to get confidential information and use it to get a higher position in another company. This is ethical in no way possible. A company works on idea of growth, and growth is very important for a company, but uh, a growth planning for growth consists of a lot of confidential information which gets leaked because of the person. Okay, and in the real corporate world, no work is classified as monotonous because of the fast-paced problems that arise, and people who look for the thrill get it, since they get to solve every changing problems. Chairpersons, while we realize that artists live in an extremely uncertain and competitive world, the same situation does not apply to the corporate world, which makes up to 70% of the industry. In these places, if tyranny, betrayal, and uncertainty breeds, it's going to lead to collapse in the industry itself. And I would like to correct the opposition that Twitter did not release half of its employees. It released around 22% of the employees, which were not efficient according to Twitter. And a statement released by Twitter around 1 week ago, it stated that around 10% of Twitter employees were polyworking. So this shows that polywork will lead to the downfall of companies, and many times this happen that polywork will not be efficient and cannot be proved itself. Okay, and I'll end my point on 3 big points, on 4 big points. Okay, so first, polywork won't prove any efficiency, and it will distribute efficiency, which will lead to a problem in the workforce. And this is not ethical in any way possible, because this may lead to disclosure of very confidential information. A person or any workplace environment cannot be trusted because of polyworking. And in the last, it will affect the workforce, and it will exhaust the workforce as well as the person. I rest my case, and I'm ready to take any POIs.
No POIs in the protected time, speaker.
Okay.
All right. Okay. With this, we come to an end of this debate. Thank you so much, everybody, for spectating, participating as debaters, etc. I think Afrina's dropped. She had some work to do. Okay, in which case, as for the verdict is concerned, although I have my initial call with me, I'd like the spectators to please put in their understanding of what the ranking should be according to what whatever they've heard and whatever they understood from the various cases. I'd like to know about that in the chat. So can you please put your rankings in the chat? So whoever takes a first can be, you can just rank them 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll just quickly do this ranking just so we know what the actual rankings are today. And then on the 14th, we will discuss why one side won over the other and all of the nitty-gritties.
Is it cool if we take a couple of minutes to do that? I have my
yeah,
notes
yeah,
actually.
yeah. That I was about to come to that. So nobody is expected to make their call too fast. So we can give you around 2, 3 minutes and even 5. Like as long as some rankings start coming in, I can give you more time to do that.
Great, thanks.
So yeah, let's just discuss stuff from 7:16 p.m. onwards. 3 minutes for you to put your ranking in the chat.
Ma'am, I did want to ask, when will the class be over? Because we do have another lecture. I do have another class today.
Yes, I do understand, because of which we're recording this, so you can listen to the feedback later as well. You can just drop for the other class right now.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Whoever has to go can leave. We will also conclude this in another 6 minutes. By 7:20, all of us will disperse because we have other commitments. I realize that. Is there anyone who is ready with their rankings and is confident about it? Or even if not not confident, just has their ranking?